So we're going to look at today is the string class, the character class, and the math class. All three of those. Let's go in reverse order. Let's look at that math class first. Y'all can see there's the reason we're going to go through that one first. There's not a whole lot to say about it. There's the absolute value method, ABS. There's the power, the square root, ceiling, floor, min, max. That the min and max both have the double parameters and the int parameters. Round and random, remembering that random will provide a random number between 0 and 1. Equal to 0 but not equal to 1. Does anybody have a question about any of those methods? What about the ceiling and floor? Do y'all know what those do?
What is ceiling like relevant to the, like, if you had like 7.1 with ceiling or relevant to 8?
Yep.
And then 4 would be 7.
That's exactly right. 7.1, if you put that in the ceiling function, rounds up, even though it's 7.1, it just takes it to the next integer above that. Technically, it's the way that it's described is that the ceiling function gives the smallest integer that is greater than that number. The smallest integer that's greater than that. And the floor gives the largest integer that is less than that, which would be 7. Kind of a weird way if you say smallest, but you're actually going up, but that's just the way that it works. So what is the smallest integer that's greater than 7.1? 8. The largest integer that's less than 7.1 is 7. This got her. Alright, she's going. Bye. Rosa, you're out of here. To the office. Okay. Round, random, we're very familiar with all that. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at something a little more interesting, the character class. Well, you know, I think maybe it would be worth our while. I don't know, let's look at the math class. I've got the dry run here, but I guess it's okay. Math dot, let's see what other methods are there. Sometimes it's fun just to see. We've got ABS, ACOS, ACOS, that's, if I'm not mistaken, returns the arc cosine of a value. So if you remember your trig, the arc cosine is where you send in a ratio and it spits out an angle. Now this is interesting. It says the return angle is in the range 0.0 through, I know y'all can't see that, but I was wondering if you were typing on to pi. 0 to pi, why don't, an angle between 0 and pi? What the heck are they talking about, Nick? They're talking about radians. So this is going to give you your answer back in radians. Like, okay, so pre-cal is paying off, because if you didn't have pre-cal, you probably might not know what the heck they were talking about. If the argument is NaN, that's not a number, or its absolute value is greater than 1, the result is NaN. The compound result must be within 1 ULP of the exact result. Results must be semi-monotonic. I do not know what that means. Reach the edge of my knowledge on that one. Add exact returns the sum of its arguments, throwing an exception if the result overflows an int. Okay, that's kind of cool. A little bit later on, we'll talk about how you know integers can only go up to, I think we saw last week, like 2-point-something billion. Was that it? Yeah. Okay. What happens if you have 2 billion plus 2 billion and you're storing the result in an int?
Yeah. Size out of bounds or something like that?
Out of bounds? I don't know. That really, I don't know. I'm just one of these people. I have to test it out. So 2 billion is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Int y equals x. Hold on. int z equals x plus y. System dot out dot print line z. What the heck? Oh, of course 2 billion plus 2 billion is negative 294 million. Didn't you know that?
So it's overlooped itself?
That's exactly what happened. Is it wrapped around and went to negative. Does some really weird stuff. It's called an overflow. This happens when your data is more than the data is more than the space that can contain it, and so you end up getting some weird results. In this case, negative numbers. And you're using the decimal system, you could not figure out what happened. But once you understand binary, then you could. In fact, actually, a binary counter has really been making the rounds on social media in the last 48 hours. I don't know if you've seen this little binary counter that's by hand.
Yeah.
That where like someone's like moving it and it moves the wood
like
to zero.
It's wood and it turns and it like has.
Yeah, I saw that like 3 years ago. That's so old, but whatever. People were all like, "Wow, it's so cool." It is cool. It is cool, but it's also not new. But
Yeah, it gets people interested. It's good.
I'm with you. If people get into in the computer science as a result of seeing that, then let's do it. So I guess if we say int z equals math.add exact x comma y, boom, red lines of death, which is exactly what we wanted. It said that add exact throws an exception if there's an overflow. And there it is, it's integer overflow. Beforehand, it didn't give us any warnings that there was integer overflow. So it seems to me like if you're dealing with really large integers, this might be something that you want to take into consideration. I don't know when you might have that. Let's explore the math class a little bit more. So I know this is programming 2. It's not necessarily all about the UIL computer science, but several of you are, and then I'll tell you some things that are helpful for that club. And that is that there are methods that are not on this, but when you're solving the programs, it's helpful to kind of dig through the Java library to see if it's available. Otherwise, you might spend 30, 45 minutes if it's on the UIL. If you're an actual programmer doing a job, you might spend a day or two trying to write some code that, what do you know, somebody else already wrote over there, and it's actually included in the library. So it's not like you're grabbing something off the internet, you're actually doing something that's been tested, verified, looked at by several dozens of professionals for validity. Anyway, so looking here, we've got arc sine, arc tangent. A tangent means arc, and then here we have a tan 2. That returns the angle theta. It's the same kind of stuff, but this is with doubles, I think. CBRT, that's a cube root. Copy sine. This is a lot of. Oh, this is cosh. That's hyperbolic cosine. That's something you don't learn about normally till calculus 2. Decrement exact. Okay. Returns the argument decremented by 1, throwing an exception if the result overflows. Okay, so a lot of the addition, subtraction stuff, but dealing with throwing exceptions. EXP returns Euler's number E raised to the power. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Like, if you remember Euler's number, we talk about that a lot in pre-cal. Floor mod, get exponent, IEEE remainder. The IEEE is the Industrial Electrical Engineers Society, that they have a lot of specifications and things that deal with math. Anyway, you've got your logarithms, your max, your min, multiply exact. Okay, so all of that stuff. Negate exact. Next after.
How many zeros is in that int x? The int x, integer x. How many zeros is in that?
12. 9.
Alright.
It's 2 billion.
Oh,
So 9.
okay.
Scalb. That looks kind of interesting. returns d times 2 to the scale factor rounded as if performed by a single correctly rounded floating point multiply to a member of the double value set. See the Java language specification for a discussion of floating point value sets. That's interesting. You know about that. Signum, the signum function, which I did not learn about that in my mathematics. 2 degrees, so it's going to convert, oh that's nice. Converts an angle measured in radians to an approximately equivalent angle measured in degrees. Might be kind of helpful. Also the 2 radians. That's not going to do the math enter, but you know, whatever. And then ULP. Returns the size of an ULP of the argument. An ULP, unit in the last place of a double value, is the positive distance between this floating point value and the double value next larger in magnitude. Okay, that's pretty interesting. This is pretty weird math stuff, but you know what? Not a whole lot of stuff that we don't already know, especially if you're pre-cal. Okay, sorry, I said that was going to be short, but it wasn't very short, was it? Talk to me about the character class. What do y'all see there on the sheet? We are recording, right, Dylan? Okay. What do y'all see? Okay, bunch of Boolean methods.
Couple tries.
Yeah. So y'all remember? I don't know how much we took in this, thought about this, whatever. But a oh, I don't want to do that. The char, remember? The character. We'll say let equals a. A character variable has to be literally a single character, and a character literal is always in single quotes. A string literal is always in double quotes. An integer is always some number with no decimal but point, or digits after the decimal. Double can have both, but this is what's called a character literal, because it's a literal. And so you can put any single symbol inside there or any character. Okay? I'll put 4 in there, and then I can do system.out.println character dot is digit let. Let is short for letter, whatever, I don't know. That's not a very good. How about I call it ch? Character ch. So according to the Java specifications here, what will this print out?
True. Would it just be true? Just Boolean?
That is exactly correct. Prints out. That other stuff is left over from a previous program. But yeah, last line there, true, because it is a digit. If I put, oh, that's just rude. I'll put L, it looks like a 1. If I put an O, the letter O, lowercase o.
Is that a 0 on answer?
Well, let's find out. False. But if I would change this is digit to is letter, then the false turns to true.
What's the difference between letter and alphabet? This when I did is or dot is, and then it gave me an option of alphabet.
Okay. Is alphabetic. Determines if the specified character is an alphabet. A character is considered to be alphabetic if its general category type provided by getType is any of the following: uppercase, lowercase, title case, modifier letter, other letter, or it has a contributory property other alphabetic as defined by the Unicode standard. I wonder if other alphabets are included in there. Probably.
Oh,
So not just things that are limited to your keyboard. So if you
so for me, if I switched over to my Russian text, I could probably read the codes and symbols in
possibly,
there.
yeah, you know, or you're able to, and there's ways you can hard code in the Unicode code and whatnot. Notice this also will tell us there's a is uppercase. What do y'all think that's going to print out now?
False.
False. But I change it to capital O.
That is 0.
It's not a 0, Joseph. It's a capital O.
Actually, that. Okay, the only difference between that and 0 is the length of 0.
Yep. I've seen programs that have asked you, you know, like, why in the world would you want to do this, something like this? Where would this come into play?
Passwords?
Passwords. If someone, this is definitely like a UIL type program. They would say, we're going to give you a string, and we want you to verify whether or not that string has, you know, it has to have at least one character, or at least has to have one symbol, one number, and then it has to be so many, you know, one letter. It has to have a letter, a number, and like a symbol. You know what I mean? Like that's the standard type stuff. How would you do that? How would y'all write a program that would solve that? I'm going to give you a string. You don't know anything about it except it's going to be a string. And you tell me yes or no if it has at least one letter, so one or more letters, it has to have one or more numbers, one or more like symbols, and has to be at least 8 characters long.
By the way, if a company does this, oh my gosh, I hate them. It's like it ends up screwing you over more than anything else because you're like, you don't remember your password. Because don't lie, most people have one password for everything, okay?
Or a couple, or variations.
Yeah.
Well, also sometimes people will then just have
Half
maybe
of my variations exist because of those stupid things.
And how many times your variations you just put like
and you have
like
to
an
reset
at on the end, or an ampersand on the end, or like a
$303
303 or
capitalize the
something.
first letter of something, or it's
Yeah, well the problem is that whatever mnemonic thing that you have to like allow you to remember it makes it just that easier for people to crack it.
The only way I can think of solving this is doing a really complex if-else ladder. I don't know if there would be a faster way of doing it, because you can do if letter with the char, if it's capital, that would immediately eliminate the first one, and then so you can go on to the next statement. If it has this also, then you can go on to the next statement. If it has that, don't know if there's a simpler way.
But you don't know how long it is, how long the string is.
But it can scan through the whole thing.
Yeah.
If an infinite scan, and if it has each one of those characteristics, it will pass.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you'd have to do. Yeah, well, having it be 8 long, you would use the length method. That would, you just make sure that it's at least 8 characters long or longer. If it does, if it's not, then you kick out immediately as false. But yeah, you would absolutely have to look at this one. You have to look at that this, and say, is it, you know, is it a letter, a number, or a symbol? But if it wasn't, well, but that doesn't mean they might have the number down here. See what I'm saying? Like, Jeremy, any thoughts? Okay, so we're looking at each character individually.
Yeah.
Keep going.
If it's like a letter or a number or a symbol, then you can do true, but if it automatically picks the false, then you can quit it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'm looking here. This says is letter or digit.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that could take care of one of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then, obviously, if it's not a letter or digit, then we would assume it's a symbol.
Yeah.
Okay? But the thing is that we want to make sure that we have at least one symbol, and at least one number, and at least one letter.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, what I would think that you would need to do is you need to go through here and count, like look at this one, and you'd have to have a variable that would be keeping track of how many letters, have another variable which was keeping track of how many numbers, and have another variable which was keeping track of how many symbols you had. And if after you processed the whole string, then you would need to look at this and say, is this equal to 0? If it is, kick out. Is this equal to 0? If it is, kick out. Or if this is equal to 0, then kick out the answer was false. That's kind of about the way that I would, otherwise, if you're gonna say this and this and this and this and this and this, see what I mean? Like, that's probably the way that I would attack that one. Now, let's deal with the fact, though, that the inputs here are all characters. And if you have a string, string S equals, this is my sample string literal, could I say is uppercase S dot substring 0 to 1? Or maybe not is uppercase, but
I gotta
maybe
love how a single semicolon can screw up.
is letter. Now, what's the problem here? Is string already duplicate name? Okay, so I already have S somewhere else. S dot. Okay. So this is giving me a problem because it says the method is letter char is in the type character is not applicable for the argument string. So if you look up there on the substring method, what does a substring return? What's its type? It's a string. And so we're feeding this method, we're giving it a string. And they're like, is letter can only take a character. Now you guys and I are like, yeah, whatever, it is a character, it's from 0 to 1, get over it, right? Now we know that, but Java's not gonna be that smart. It's not gonna realize that this is only one string, okay? Only one character, rather. So we would look up there at the string methods and see if there is maybe another method that would help us out here. I'll tell you right, there is one. I mean, I know it. I'm looking at it, but I want you to find it. Cody, you see anything? Yep, that's the one. Char at. You give it an index, and it spits out that character. Char at. So it's kind of the bottom third. So instead of saying st.substring, we would need to say st.char at position 0.
Oh.
So imagine you could do this in a for loop, where you say go from int I equals 0, I less than st.length, I plus plus, and then you just say char at I. So it looks at the 0, then it looks at the 1, then it looks at the 2. Whoa, we got some falses in here. Why do you think I'm getting some false while walking through the string? This is my sample string literal. The spaces. So yeah, so that's how you would walk through a string character by character if you needed to analyze those characters. And this character class is very helpful for those reasons, for doing the processing. Is digit, is letter or digit, is lowercase, is uppercase, and then obviously you have the two uppercase and the two lowercase, which will convert. Let's real quickly look and see if there's anything else. Character dot. There's lots of constants here. I'm not sure what all of those are all about. Directionality, right to left, end punctuation. Gosh, so many of these. Code points, digit, get name, get numeric, get type. iSurrogate. Now, sometimes you look at this, you're like, wow, this pretty. Is character, is letter, is mirrored, is space character. Oh, is space character. Okay, so that would deal with spaces and tabs and stuff like that. Okay, so just so you know, there is a ton of stuff that you can do with Java. In case that this library is huge. This is just one class in the Java library. Okay. Any questions about the character class?
Internet machine broke.
What machine broke?
Internet machine broke. Wi-Fi machine.
Oh, where Wi-Fi's down?
I think. I don't know. It's weird for me. It's still showing. Whatever.
I just would assume the Wi-Fi's up because you're using Apple Play.
Yeah. Well, don't knock it.
I think it's fixed
Don't
now.
tell it. Just don't let it know. Okay. So let's look at the string class. Compared to, I think we've dealt with that kind of significantly compared to whether you're positive, negative, or zero. The equals method, we've talked about that. The length, substring, I know we've talked about that extensively, but for the last 2 years. Index of. Now this one's a little bit new. I didn't mention this to you last year, but it's that second index of. It says int index of string str, so it's looking for this particular string. Then it says int from index. So the idea is, if you were looking through a string for a specific substring and you want to know where is this located, if you remember, the index of is always going to give you the very first occurrence that occurs. Okay, so if you're looking, if you say something like banana dot index of A, it's going to give you 1. All right, even though there's other A's in banana. However, if you say index of A, comma 4, then it's going to start looking 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to start looking at that 4th position and then move onward. Okay, and this will actually return 5. B-A-N-A-N-A. Okay, yeah, bananas. Got it. So this is helpful if maybe you're looking through a string and you want to count how many times a certain substring occurs. That's what that one's helpful for. Then you've got index of, and then you can give it a character, and also character being a spot. You can you've got the char at, which we talked about, the 2 lowercase and the 2 uppercase. By the way, anytime that you're comparing strings, something that the user inputs or something you get from a file, if you want to compare that with a known value that you have, the best bet is always just to make both of them lowercase and then do the comparison. Otherwise, you might run into some, like I said, Java's type sensitive, case sensitive, and it's going to know what's going on. Let me show you one of the methods that's not on here, and that is the trim method. We may have talked about this last year. System.println st.trim. That will return a string whose value is this string, with any leading and trailing white space removed. So I'm going to go here to ST and have some white space and some white space there at the end. And just to be clear, I'm going to say X plus the trimmed value plus an X. You'll see that it's literally been trimmed. Just on the ends. Nothing in the middle. That one is helpful for various reasons. And then you've got one of my all-time favorites, split. All right? Split allows you to do something amazing. Split will take a string that maybe, for instance, a sentence, such as this is my sample string literal, and we'll split it up, chop it up, and send it into an array. I'll get rid of that white space because I really don't like that white space right now. Okay? So I'll say string array str equals st dot split, and then it's looking for this thing called regex, which is a regular expression, and we'll talk about that, but not right now. For our purposes, you can just say I want it to split on the spaces.
What do you mean by split?
It's going to split it and turn it. It will turn that string into an array containing wherever the splits are.
Oh.
So this space is my sample.
Brackets?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how to make square symbols.
So every time, so what split does is every time it sees a space, because I want it to split on spaces, it'll be like split, 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 and split. And then it goes over here and creates an array, in this case called strr. And in position 0, it puts the word this. And in position 1, it puts is. And then my sample string. Did we talk about this last year? I know we did in UIL. You don't remember talking about UIL? No? You guys, do you remember? So definitely not an AP then. So it's fine. You have to use this in UIL like almost all the time. So what happens is that you get the reason is because in the UIL programs it gives you a data file or a file, and you grab the whole line as a string, and then normally they'll say the first word is an instruction or something like that, and then there's going to be a number, and then there's going to be something else. And rather than having to deal with substrings and they'll say and they're all separated by a single space. And rather than doing like a substring and looking for all that stuff, you literally just do a split, and then you do a for loop, and you say process this, process this, process this, process this, process this, and you can go word by word. I think I might have an example. Here's a program specification. It involves some sort of game or whatever. But this is what they say, the input. The input is a data file with several sets of data. Each data is a series of integers, all on one line with single space separation. The first integer, S, indicates the number of squares on the penny strip. The second value, P, the number of pennies on the strip, blah, 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 blah. So you're like, okay, I need to get all of those numbers, and I need to turn them into, I need to have a variable for each one. How many variables? I don't. Okay, well, an array would be awesome because then I could process it. But how big does the array need to be? Do I make an array list that's dynamic? I really just need to get this into an array as fast as I can so I can start working on the processing. And split is what helps you out with that, because let me just grab that. Get a little. So there's that string of numbers there. Okay, I've split it into there. Now what I want is I don't want an array of strings. I want an array of numbers, so then I can just process it. I can look at the first number. That's going to tell you something for the program. Look at the next number. That's going to tell you something else like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through this array and turn these strings into integers. We talked about that the other day. Does anybody remember what we called that process? Parsing. So, just to be clear, I have this string and I have the string array, and inside I have the value double quote 12, then double quote 7, then double quote 1, so on and so forth. I'm wanting to turn that into num array that just has 12, 7, 1, and so on. So the first thing I need to do is I need to actually create this array. So I'll say int array num array equals new int, and I have to give it a size. I have to tell it how big it is. Like, well, I don't know how big that is, because looking over here, some of those lines are going to be like 8 lines, and some are going to be 3, and some are going to be 7 or whatever. And the answer is, I'm going to make it exactly as big as that other array. I'll say strrr dot length. Then I'll just walk through the string array. So int I equals 0, I less than str dot length, I plus plus, num array I equals str array I. That's not fully correct yet, but I just want to make sure you understand what's going on here. That would just do a string into integer, but it's giving us red lines because, or it's telling us there's an error there. What I want to do is I want to wrap that str array inside a parse. So I'll say integer dot parse int. And I'll put that right there. And this is actually a very normal routine, the stuff that you've got to do pretty much on a regular basis. Because it's easy to read an entire line, it's just next line. This grabs it as a string. And then you use split to split it up based on the spaces. And then you use parse int to convert that. And then if I wanted to, if they said something like, all right, print them all out, print out those same numbers, but they're doubles, then I can be like, oh, no big deal. For int I equals 0, I less than num array I plus plus. There's lots of other ways we could. I could have done it up there, but I'm just going to do it here. System.println num array I times 2. In fact, I'm not even going to do a print line. I'll just do a print. But I'll probably have to wrap that. Wrap that num array times 2 inside of parentheses so that it evaluates it, and then put a space there on the end. here somewhere. STR. Oop. I less than numarray dot length. (24, 14, 2, 8, 12, so on and so forth. So for that one particular UIL problem where it was actually giving you strings, this is literally something you would do within like the first 3 minutes. grab that first line, trim it if you needed to, split it, copy it into an integer array, and then start doing your processing. So these are our necessary first steps. Nick, tell us something that you particularly learned today. We talked about quite a lot of stuff.
Well, we just did the split thing.
And what does the split thing do in your own words there, Nick?
It was like, makes its own array.
Say it again?
Makes its own array.
It does make an array. What type of array does it make? Not a number array. Let's help them out, class. What type of array does split make? A string array. Yes. And it takes that existing string and that's what it splits it on. Now, I will tell you this that I mentioned before. We're splitting on the space. That's what you're going to do 9 times out of 10. But it could be that you would want to split it on the A, on the letter A, or on the vowels. You can actually split it so that it splits all the vowels and cuts out all of the vowels completely, and all you get are the consonants. And that's kind of cool if you want to break it, rather than maybe having some sort of complex method that's going to, like, say, if the first letter's a vowel, cut it out, the second letter's a vowel. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could do literally slice, 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 and you've got now an array of all of the consonants. Cody, something that you learned specifically.
I was reminded of it, the trim.
What'd you learn about, Cody?
The trim.
Trim, okay.
I just need the shirt size for some of the kids in here real quick, Mr. Daughter.
All right. Well, all right, ding, 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 there's the pre-bell bell. All right, we learned lots of great stuff. Make sure y'all are reading that A+ book. Like and subscribe. Go ahead, Rachel.